What's going on YouTube? My name is Zachary Kramer with Progressive Payment Solutions and welcome to the PPS vlog. Today we're going to be talking about high risk merchant accounts, what they mean, what they are, and how you can get one. Let's begin. What exactly is a high risk merchant account, you might be thinking to yourself? And it's very simple. It's any merchant or business that has a high probability of a chargeback. This really could be any product or service where you pay up front, but it's not delivered until a much later date. A week or two, that's not considered high risk. It's really a couple of months. So, an example, you have a custom furniture company where they take a deposit up front, they're going to make the furniture, and they're going to deliver it in 5-6 months. That's going to be considered high risk. Another one is travel. You book a trip 6 months down the line, you need to pay up front. That's another one. And then of course you also have high risk accounts, which is what you're probably thinking, which is gambling, adult material, nutraceuticals is a big one, CBD, all that stuff is also considered high risk. And the last category is a business that is doing a lot of transactions in foreign countries and accepting foreign currencies. That's another high probability of a lot of chargebacks. Therefore, it's a high risk merchant account. Typically, when you think something is high risk, you think of a lot of negatives, but believe it or not, with a high risk merchant account comes some positives. The first is you're going to be able to accept business in other countries. Now, just because you're doing business in other countries doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be high risk, but if you do a certain percentage in other countries, then your provider may say, okay, we're going to put you under a high risk account. So it gives you more opportunities to do business overseas. That's number one. Number two is anything with a high ticket. So a high ticket is really any transaction over $7,500. That's typically the standard. Obviously, there's caveats to that, but if your average ticket is over $7,500, then they're probably going to want you with a higher risk merchant account, because the larger the sale, typically, the higher chance of a chargeback. And if the sale is, for example, we have a construction company, their average ticket is over $100,000 per transaction, then the bank is not necessarily going to want to accept those transactions, because if there's a chargeback, then the bank and your business is going to be liable for a very large sum of money. So that's another way you can be put into the high risk category. But a good thing is, once you're in the high risk category, you are able to do those higher ticket transactions more often. Because if you're in a low risk merchant account and say you have, every once in a while a very large transaction, the processor might bother you and ask you, hey, we're going to need some information on the card holder, for example, their name, their address, their phone number. They're going to want to see invoices. But with a high risk merchant account, the processor is going to be expecting it, so you're going to be cleared and good to go, and you're not going to have to take those extra steps. So those are some of the benefits of having a high risk merchant account. Now let's talk about some of the drawbacks, because there are a few. So the first is, yes, high risk means high reward, and unfortunately what that means for you is that the pricing is going to be much higher than a typical merchant account. And the difference between the pricing with a high risk account is you actually typically are not given the pricing up front. You have to apply for the merchant account first. They have to assess the risk that you're going to have, and then they will tell you the pricing that you're going to have. Whereas opposed to a traditional account is they tell you the pricing up front, and that's that. You can sign up or not. But with a high risk account, you have to apply, and then they will tell you the pricing after. So that's one thing. The pricing is typically going to be much higher than a standard merchant account. The second drawback is going to be it's actually pretty difficult to get a high risk merchant account. Not a lot of processors will do them. So you have to do your due diligence. You have to go to a provider that's known for having high risk merchant accounts and has experience. Because, you know, some providers will be like, oh yeah, we could do it or whatever. And then they're typically outsourcing it to a third party. You're not even sure if that account is going to be offshore, onshore. You don't really know. So make sure to go to a reputable provider. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. It really helps our channel a lot. And I'm going to put a link in the description below to the full article that we have. It gives a list of businesses. And until next time, have a progressive day. See you later.